All right, welcome back to the program. Paul Alaje, the senior economist at SPM Professionals, is joining me right now virtually. Hello, Paul, and welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me. Happy New Year.
Paul, Happy New Year to you. We haven't spoken at least since this New Year. How are you doing?
Beautiful.
Okay, speak to me about, or explain, not to me really now, explain what inflation means in the simplest of terms to someone watching us right now that perhaps hasn't passed through an economic class or a class that studied economics like you. Speak to an average Nigerian what inflation means in the simplest of terms. That this inflation rate of 15.75%, this is what it means.
Okay, so for someone who perhaps have not studied economics, but maybe studied medicine, mechanical engineering, or has not even been to school at all, how is inflation affecting you and what does it mean? If you have 1,000 naira this time last year, 1,000 naira this time last year, according to National Bureau of Statistics, inflation is now 15.75%. What it means is that the worth of that 1,000 naira, 15 naira of the 1,000 as in terms of value has been eroded. So what it means literally is that 1,000 naira is a mere note, but what it can buy on the average has reduced by 15 naira 75 kobo. So that matters. We said it matters because I only mentioned 1 naira. Let's take it to 100,000 naira. It means that approximately, say 15 naira there, 15,000 and 75 naira. And if you taking it to 1 million, you take it to 10 million, you now see, you feel the impact of inflation. That is why most of the time we advise people, do not keep money under your pillow. Put money where it can have value. And if you must save money, ensure that you ask questions about the rate at which you are getting as interest on savings. When your interest on savings is microscopic, even though you are saving the money, you are still losing money. Why? Because there is that invisible force called inflation that is stealing legitimately or illegitimately from you if your government don't make policy to significantly reduce inflation. I'm afraid the thief is always around the corner. And you remember, my favorite book says, a thief, that man has not come but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. So do we say that inflation most of the time has positive impact? I think the negative, tremendous impact, the negative impact of inflation seems to outweigh the positive impact it might have on the economy. And this, of course, we saw even when you have figures nominally increased, by the time you deflate the economy using the rate of inflation, the figure seems to come down drastically. And the National Bureau of Statistics said this figure has increased, and the major driver, the subsector on the steering of inflation is food inflation. We narrowly escaped 20% inflation rate at over 19%, and when you average it, inflation eventually came, not my figures, but according to National Bureau of Statistics, it came to 15.75%. That's what National Bureau of Statistics says. And I think that is true. I said bank targeted 6 to 9% inflation rate. And even in economics class, I think the comfortable place should be around 3%, 5 to 6 is eligible.
Hold on, Paul, because I was about also coming to that in terms of, from what you said, that perhaps the negative effects of inflation outweigh the positive effects. Do you think in Nigeria in recent times, because if we have the card for the 2020 inflation rate, guys, I would appreciate if we can put it on the screen so that our viewers can have an idea. I think in January, we started this year with an inflation rate of 12%, if I'm not mistaken, and we ended 2020 with an inflation rate of 15%. So how much inflation is good for us vis-a-vis the kind of economy that we operate? One, vis-a-vis also a lot of, yes, I think starts with that. The A part of the question is that. Then the B part of the question is, if you take a look at the good inflation, let me put it that way, or an inflation that is good, or when economists such as you will say, okay, sometimes moderate inflation can also be good because that shows that demand for stuff is increasing when the economy grows. I hope you get what I'm saying. So,
Clearly.
yes, so I want you to talk on that. The
So
A
there are a
part
lot
of the
of things to
question, yes.
inflation. There are a lot of things to think in inflation too, because I've seen a number of persons who said, okay, if they don't have inflation, it's better for us to have deflation. Deflation is like having low BP. And you know, medical doctor will say that having low BP is even worse off compared to having high blood pressure. So deflation is not what you want to talk about. So mild inflation, moderate inflation, between 3% to 5%, even 1% to 5% is still manageable for our kind of economy. And there are a lot of parameters to measure. If your economy GDP is growing at minus 3.64%, how come your inflation is growing at increasing rate at 15.75%, unemployment 12.71%, unemployment 27.1%, unemployment 28.6%. This is a clear classical state of stagflation, where inflation and suffering is going at the same time, and Nigeria needs to be worried. So if inflation is moderate, around 1 to about 5% is acceptable. I think most economists around the world agree to 3% inflation, and the same for unemployment, around 3% neutral employment rate. So, but that's not what we have here, because there will naturally be inflation. Economics are worried when there is even deflation, and if it's sustained for a long period of time, it starts having impact on several economic parameters. So inflation could be moderate, it is acceptable, but when the inflation gets beyond 5%, 3 to 5%, economics start to get worried. When it now gets to double-digit inflation, that is above 9%, or worst case scenario 9.9%, then it gives us a lot of concern. When it gets to 10%, so 10% is not acceptable, 11%, 12%, and we also look at the authority that is supposed to manage price stability. In this case, Monetary Authority, MPC, as championed by Central Bank. Central Bank has continued to do everything possible to ensure that inflation stays around manageable figures.
Yes, but hold on, Paul. But why do you think that we can't rein in inflation rates in the country to a single digit? Why? I remember during the Sanusi days as governor, we had inflation. It was high a bit, but we were able to rein it in, I think, to about 9%. But that was like years ago now. Yes.
9.6.
Yes. So why?
No, in 2014, inflation was 9.6%. Yes. It was not above 9%.
Yes, that's
even
that's what I'm actually asking. That can we get the good old days back in terms of inflation?
Yes,
can we get between 6 to 9% again with what is happening now? How?
So this is it. You know, inflation started increasing when we started exchange rate rationing. I think around 2015, and Nigeria went into a recession in 2016, 2017. Inflation grew to about 18%. So when it now started to moderate, it moderated around 11%. Before COVID struck, inflation started going again as we speak, 15.75%. So can we achieve that rate? We can. Unfortunately, fiscal authority has significant role, because when you break down what National Bureau of Statistics gave us in terms of inflation, it was evident that food inflation, which is within the purview of fiscal authority, because of insecurity, particularly in the Northeast and the rest of the northern region, North Central and Northwest, where we have most of the food production. A couple of months ago, we have what the insurgents did to rice farmers. While they were on farm. We also have heard about kidnapping and banditry in most parts of Northwest and Northeast. The truth is, all of this insecurity, they have implication on pricing. Why? Because supply side will continue to shrink, where when we continue to have more children, increase in our population, which means demand side is increasing. And you need the two to converge at a reasonable point. Because this convergence is not happening enough, it's not happening fast enough, and at a reasonable point, that is why we continue to have a lot of gap, particularly due to shortage in supply. So you see tomatoes getting increased, price of onions at a time when increased. I know we can say, oh, this is not harvest season. We don't need to wait for harvest season for us to continue to push in effect of what we have. So that said, because of food crisis that we had, recall that inflation started growing at an increasing rate. I'm not just talking of 11%, 12%. I'm even saying the sporadic way at it is increased. It increased higher rate when we had the lockdown of our land borders. And we explained to authority that as good as it is for us to lock our land borders, we need to do the needful force. Okay. Why? Because economics policy about sufficient, about two things: necessary condition and sufficient condition. It is necessary for us to lock our land borders, but it's not sufficient. So don't do it. That's what it means. That's the decision rule. It was necessary because we might see infiltration here and there. Then we need to fortify our land borders to ask them to do the right thing. Why? Because we don't have replacement for the gap in input or in production that comes from neighboring country. So eventually government yielded to voice of reason and relaxed the policy, and we start seeing that the borders, even though activity has not peaked, but I'm afraid that we'll get it in coming period.
Paul, you know what? One would also argue that perhaps the agricultural sector hasn't had it good, at least in recent times, in terms of agricultural credits, since perhaps the establishment of NISAL some years ago. That is NIRSAL, in case of people asking what exactly is that. NISAL, the risk-based lending program that was also established some years ago by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Emefiele has also continued with it in terms of agricultural credit, left, right, and center, rise. We saw what happened also during the lockdown, that farmers should have some kind of credit to be able to beef up their businesses. But it seems with all those things, it seems like we are pouring water in a basket. Why? Perhaps our food prices still up. I know you brought in the issue of insecurity. Are we addressing that enough? Or are we shying away from the problem? And we don't want to speak the truth to ourselves so that some people don't get hot. Meanwhile, our economy is getting hot, and more people are being plunged into poverty. The World Bank says 11 million people will be plunged into poverty by 2022. The president intends to bring out 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years. I think this is the second year. How many people have been brought out? So how do you juxtapose all those things that I have said?
3 reasons. One, I don't think we are pouring water behind in a basket. I only think that we are not doing sufficiently enough. First, most of the policies that we have made, they were not given proper thought. Again, there is no national development plan. I start with this. When you say we want to support agriculture and we want to give credit, recall, President
Obasanjo gave the ARGP that was there now, that has given way to Nigeria 2050. Nigeria Agenda 2050.
ERGP failed. Why? Because there was no financial attachment to ERGP. What is the work of
ERGP? The Agriculture Promotion Program by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, APP.
What is it? Listen, what grew in agriculture? Something grew, which constitutes 80% of agriculture, which is crop production. But agricultural value chain goes beyond crop production. So the thing is, let us look at economies that have achieved significant results in agriculture. It is not go to the farm with your hoes and cutlass. There are basic things that government will put in place, either to organize people for some of these things to be in place, either through cooperative and so on and so forth. But significantly, when you consider Nigeria vis-a-vis agricultural practice, it is still very crude, it is still very backward. So what I have encouraged government to do over time and again is what so many other countries that have similar size but are bigger in economy and have also done something significant in agriculture. What have they done? They have created linkages. They've linked the market to farms. That is what we have not done. When we're having conversation about manufacturers, we need input from farms, but they are not connected. They are not connected either through through road. They are not connected also through programs of government. They are also not connected even through manpower, even localization, policies of government, ease of doing business. These are realities that are always coming back to authors. Even though central bank seems to have started a good thing only on a smaller component of all of this, which is rice production. What has central bank done? Central bank has started anchor borrowers program, and even beyond that, we can now have off-takers coming from manufacturers promising that if you farm, I can give you CV, or central bank can give you CV or give you, and I'm going to guarantee that. The challenge here is that even when there are some major risks that the guarantor cannot stand for instance, flood taking away all the output of farmers, or farmers going back, as we have had in 2 states in Nigeria now, going back at night to harvest without honoring the contract. What will central bank do? There seems to be no answer coming.
The central bank definitely does not have that, would not even do that, because it's not within its jurisdiction and purview. So it's trying to bring in help in terms of credit. But finally, and just in a few seconds, with this, unemployment rate is at 27.1%, inflation at 15.75%. When I calculated the misery index, I was getting over 45% or thereabout.
It's over 60%.
Why did you say?
You had over 60, because you have to add underemployment to it.
Okay, yes. Underemployment, I think, is over 20-something percent, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So what that means right now is that Nigerians, we are all miserable, because that's what the misery index will be. I'm miserable, you are miserable. It's not a matter of, God forbid, that's not our portion. That's what the economic numbers are saying, because the monies in my pocket are not buying what it should buy. I'm not well secured. Inflation is eroding my purchasing power. There's unemployment. You go out, a lot of people are saying, oh, giving you CVs, delivering you with a lot of job vacancies and all of that, or job, oh, if you see job, please. You know, what am I saying in essence? Would we see the misery lessen as the year go by?
Well, misery index, talk about economic discomfort. A lot of people have been there, has a lot of discomfort with miserability index, but this is it. According to the numbers, when you had the inflation, unemployment, or the employment together, you have 60%. What it means is, if 4 other persons join you in the studio today, at least 3 of the 5 are miserable. They are having major issue with economic discomfort. And so people viewing us either on YouTube, or they are viewing on their television at home right now, or in their office, I can tell them that 3 out of 5. How do we start to reduce the impact of economic discomfort? Is by us asking or taking decision to reduce the impact of economic miserability and economic impact of economic quagmire on us. And what are the things we need to do? I have mentioned time and again that in an economy that have larger population than we do, and they seem to be getting it right.
Okay.
And what are the things they've transformed the economy from primary to secondary, tertiary.
Paul, I think we need to go now. Thank you very much. Thank you. For joining us today and for giving us your perspectives. Perhaps 3 in 5 people, but I may say even 5 in 5 people, because there's no big man right now in Nigeria. If you're a big man, you're also getting the brunt, because by the time you get home, a lot of people are in your house begging you for something. You are paying school fees of people that are not even closely related to you. So everyone is feeling this pain. Thank you very much, Paul, for joining us. All right. All right, at this point, let's quickly take the CBN Weekly segment, where I told you earlier that we'll be looking at what the central bank calls the blue economy. What's that? I'll see you all tomorrow, God willing. Don't forget to be the best you can be. Also, wear a mask to protect yourself. Wash your hands and sanitize your hands too. I am Nancy Naji. Bye now. Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Moneyline with Nancy TV YouTube channel. This is where we provide you with instructive business directions, processes, and guidance to help you assess the right resources to fund your businesses to withstand every form of internal and external shock. You will find here awesome informative videos on business, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle, just to help you make informed business and financial decisions. Punch the subscribe button and let us drive you through the world of business. Please follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and follow us for latest updates on our website.